Adventure Time, a show that put a boy in a white hat on every piece of promotional material, every thumbnail, every poster, every piece of merchandise for 10 straight years. A show literally named after the adventures that boy goes on. A show where that boy is present in virtually every single episode from the pilot to the finale. And I'm here to tell you that Adventure Time was never really about him. Now, before you come for me in the comments, and I know you will, I've seen what you people do with it. Let me be precise about what I'm actually arguing, because I'm not saying Finn doesn't matter. I'm not saying his arc isn't important or that his growth across 10 seasons isn't real and genuinely moving. I've done a whole video on Finn's arc and I stand by every word of it. What I'm saying is something more specific than that. I'm saying that Adventure Time used Finn as a lens, a point of entry, a way to walk the audience into a world and a set of ideas that were always bigger than any one character. And the moment you start looking at the show through that frame, the moment you stop asking what is this show doing with Finn and start asking what is this show actually about, everything clicks into place in a way that I think changes how you see the whole thing. So let's make the case. From the beginning, here's the most important question you can ask about any piece of long-form storytelling. Not who is the main character, not what happens in the plot, but what does the show keep returning to no matter what else is going on? What is the thing it cannot stop talking about, even when it's pretending to talk about something else? And if you watch Adventure Time with that question in mind, the answer's not Finn. The answer's identity, what it means to know who you are. What happens when that knowledge gets taken from you? What gets left behind when a person, or a being, or a creature, or a kingdom loses the thing that made them themselves? That question shows up everywhere in this show. Constantly, obsessively, in characters who have nothing to do with Finn's main storyline, in episodes that Finn barely appears in the world building, in the backstory, in the relationships between characters who were ancient and complicated long before Finn ever showed up. The Ice King lost his identity to a crown and spent 1,000 years not knowing what was gone. Marceline spent centuries building a self out of the wreckage of a world that ended and a father figure who disappeared. Princess Bubblegum created an entire kingdom and then slowly lost herself inside the responsibility of running it. Flame Princess spent her whole life being told her identity was evil before she got to decide for herself what she actually was. Every major character in Adventure Time is wrestling with a version of the same question, and Finn is the one who gets to watch all of it, who gets to be present for all of these other people's crises of identity while he is simultaneously working through his own. He is not the subject of the show, he is the witness, and those are fundamentally different things. Let me give you the clearest possible piece of evidence for this argument, and it is an episode that most people would never think to bring up in this conversation. Holly Jolly Secrets. This is a season 3 episode that on the surface is about Finn and Jake trying to find out what embarrassing secrets the Ice King has recorded on his VHS tapes. Fun premise. Classic Adventure Time silliness. Finn is present the whole time, driving the plot, being the protagonist in every conventional sense, and then the VHS tape plays, and it becomes the Ice King's video diary, and Simon Petrikov appears on screen looking frightened and confused and heartbreakingly human, and the episode stops being about Finn completely. Not partially, completely. Finn goes quiet, Jake goes quiet, the show goes quiet. And for several minutes that feel much longer than they are, the entire emotional weight of the episode belongs entirely to a character who is not the main character. A character whose tragedy existed for centuries before Finn was born and will continue to exist regardless of anything Finn does or doesn't do. And the show treats that tragedy as the most important thing in the episode. More important than Finn's curiosity about the tapes, more important than whatever adventure brought them there in the first place. A show that was truly about Finn would have used that moment to develop Finn, would have made his reaction the emotional center, would have filtered Simon's tragedy through what it means for the protagonist. Adventure Time does something more interesting. It just tells you Simon's story. It trusts that story to be the point on its own terms. It doesn't need Finn to be the reason it matters. Now let's talk about the episodes where Finn isn't even really there, because Adventure Time has a remarkable number of them for a show with a clear protagonist. And I don't mean episodes where Finn is a side character or has a smaller role. I mean episodes where the show completely hands the emotional center to someone else and builds something genuinely complete without him. Simon and Marcy, an entire episode set during the Mushroom War following young Simon and a little girl named Marceline trying to survive the apocalypse. Finn appears briefly in a framing device, that's it, and this episode is one of the most devastating and most complete things the show ever produced. The Stakes, a Marceline miniseries that goes deep into her history, her relationship with her mother, her complicated feelings about her own vampiric nature, her dynamic with Bubblegum. Finn is present occasionally, but he is not the reason any of it works or matters. Goliad, Rattleballs, the Lich's various appearances throughout the series, Princess Bubblegum's increasingly complicated political storylines, Hunson Abadir, the cosmic mythology that builds across seasons until it becomes its own enormous thing. All of this exists independently of Finn. All of this would be just as true and just as meaningful if Finn had never been born. The world of Adventure Time is not constructed around its protagonist the way a show that is truly about its protagonist constructs its world. It's constructed around its themes, and it uses every character, Finn included, as a vehicle for those themes rather than the other way around. Here's where I want to push this argument into its most interesting territory. The show tells you directly that Finn is not the center of the universe it has built. It tells you this in the most explicit possible way in the season 6 finale, and I think most people heard it and didn't quite register what was being said. The Comet tells Finn that it has reincarnated across thousands of years carrying a fundamental cosmic energy, that in various forms it has embodied both all that is good and all that is terrible, that Finn is one expression of that energy, the Lich is another, and the cycle has been going on long before Finn existed and will continue long after. Finn is not the hero of a story. He is one iteration of a recurring cosmic pattern, one instance of something that has happened many times and will happen again. The show looks its own protagonist in the face and says, "You are important, but you are not singular. You are not the point. You are part of something much larger than yourself that was already in motion before you arrived." That is a genuinely unusual thing for a show to do to its main character. And it tells you everything about what Adventure Time actually understood itself to be. So if the show isn't about Finn, what is it about? I think it's about what survives, specifically about what survives loss, what survives the end of the world, what survives 1,000 years of loneliness, or a crown that eats your mind, or a father who abandons you, or a kingdom that needs you to be something you're not sure you actually are. The land of Oo is a post-apocalyptic world. Human civilization ended, everything was destroyed, and then slowly, improbably, absurdly, life came back. Candy people and rainicorns and vampires and ice wizards and talking dogs and a boy in a white hat who punches evil and calls it mathematical. All of that silliness, all of that color and noise and joy, growing directly on top of catastrophe, rooted in loss so old that nobody alive remembers it happening. That is what Adventure Time is about, the persistence of life and identity and connection in a world that has already ended once. The way beings keep reaching for each other and building things and caring about each other even inside a universe that is ancient and indifferent and occasionally tries to wish all life out of existence. Finn gets to witness all of that, gets to participate in it, gets to grow up inside it and be shaped by it, and his journey matters. It genuinely does. But he is not the reason the show is saying what it's saying. He is just the kid who happened to be standing there when the show said it. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful, because it means the show was always bigger than any one character, always bigger than any one story, always reaching for something that couldn't be contained inside a single white hat, no matter how iconic that hat became. Adventure Time was never about Finn. It was about everything he got to be a part of. Leave a like if this reframe did something to you. Subscribe if you're new, because this is the kind of argument I make on this channel regularly, and there is a lot more coming. I'll catch you in the next one.